Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This update is brought to you by the PowerCast Network. Here is the latest and greatest on the situation regarding CM Punk. From what we understand, what has been reported by Dave Meltzer and several other news outlets, CM Punk has a triceps tear that is going to keep him out for 6 to 8 months. Now, some outlets have reported this as a pec tear, but Meltzer and several others that seem to be closer to the situations understand it as a triceps tear. Now, Booker T's podcast just the other day, the Hall of Fame, brought up a very good point. He started talking about body conditioning for wrestlers in their 40s and how what used to be slight injuries or medium injuries are now very serious injuries, and the recovery time takes a lot longer. Booker T described in detail injuries that he sustained, and he gave a pretty negative outlook for CM Punk, and he pretty much questioned Punk's ability to continue wrestling after two very serious injuries pretty much back to back here. With that said, Booker T has been known to be extremely critical of CM Punk and not the biggest fan of CM Punk. However, he does make a valid point. This is the second very serious injury for CM Punk within 12 months here. Is his wrestling career, as he knew it, as we knew it, is it in jeopardy due to health reasons? Okay, now let's take a look at that from a different point of view now. CM Punk has been suspended, even though he's out injured, along with the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and several others. We have not been given any time or dates on the length of these suspensions, and it hasn't been announced that these suspensions were indefinite. As a matter of fact, AEW and Tony Khan in particular have stayed away from giving us any complete or accurate information. There's rumors that there is legal ramifications to what has taken place, both civil and due to the police being involved in the altercation. So it's been said that that AEW is playing this very close to the chest and being very careful in what they say and what they put out. So here's what we know about CM Punk's deal with AEW. In 2021, CM Punk signed a 3-year, $3 million deal. Now, AEW is its own company. All Elite Wrestling is its own company. It's not a subsidiary of any of the other con ventures. The other con ventures do not own portions or percentages of AEW. Shad Khan and Tony Khan individually own AEW. Now, I'm sure they have partners in some way, shape, or form, but they are essentially the owners. So, Punk's contract is with AEW. Here's what we don't know. Is this an actual employee contract with AEW, similar to when wrestlers with WCW were signing deals with Time Warner for WCW, where they actually were paid employees? Hence, when WCW was bought out and shut down by the WWF at the time, several wrestlers got to just sit back and ride out the rest of their contracts because their contracts were with Time Warner. Or, in this situation, is CM Punk still an independent contractor? Because CM Punk is probably one of the only wrestlers that ever challenged successfully the independent contractor status. So what I'm getting at here is CM Punk voluntarily left the WWE. They tried to force him to come back. They found out they legally couldn't. And essentially, they went into public saying that they fired him, but they technically hadn't fired him. Punk was an independent contractor, and he left. He talked about this in great specifics in his interview with Colt Cabana from 2014. He successfully challenged the independent contractor status and ended up ahead and on top in that deal. He also ended up winning, from what I understand, a $20 million lawsuit against the World Wrestling Entertainment Company. So if this is the case, where once again Punk is an independent contractor, which in his situation it would make perfect sense for him because then he knows if he was unhappy he could quit again at any time. If he is an independent contractor, maybe Punk's not going to come back after this injury. Maybe he's had enough with AEW. It certainly sounded like it in that press conference. Is anything going to change? Is Tony Khan going to get rid of the people causing the problems that Punk doesn't like, at least from the Punk point of view? So technically, Punk could be done with AEW here. Now, you have to bring up the question of, does that mean Punk is going to be done with wrestling now also? Or could there potentially be a WWE return? You know how the WWE always says, never say never. Now, granted, Punk seemed to have his biggest heat with Triple H, also known as Paul Levesque. So I would say that the odds of that happening are probably very slim. But stranger things and crazier things have happened. Ultimate Warrior made a comeback, and Ultimate Warrior held up Vince McMahon for $1 million before he went out for a match. There's also been other wrestlers that have done some really scummy things and have come back to the WWE. So I would say at this point, we just don't know what's going on. But here's what we do know. Punk is injured. He's out for 6 to 8 months. He's technically suspended by AEW. Those that he got in the fight, the altercation with, the fight with, have also been suspended. We don't know how long anybody has been suspended for. We don't have any of that information. We also know that Punk is injured for 6 to 8 months. Is this injury going to end his career? Can his body continue to wrestle the way he wants to wrestle? And can he remain healthy? That is another question. So that's what we're looking at here, folks. Is CM Punk done with AEW? We'll have to wait and find out.